Are you struggling with not getting credit at the end of a big cross-group project that just completed? When that big email comes out and there's a whole list of 50 names and yours is one that's just buried within all the rest? Or worse, you're not listed at all and you spend a lot of time working on the project? Well, today I'm going to talk about 2 key tips you can use to ensure you start getting the credit that you really deserve from these big projects. And if you stick around to the end, I'll give you a bonus tip on how to avoid one of the most common pitfalls that most people I've seen who send this kind of credit can do, and how to avoid it completely. My name's Milan, and in the 30 years I spent working my way to senior level in a Fortune 100 company, there were a number of times when I felt I wasn't getting the credit I deserved from working on a big project. And yeah, it really sucks, right? I mean, you poured your heart and soul into these projects. You worked with a ton of people, sometimes for months, upwards to a year. And at the end of it, you might barely be named. Like, that's just doesn't feel good for anyone, right? Well, today in the first tip, what I'm going to talk about is you turn that around by starting to be a selfless contributor. And what I mean by that is you become selfless with credit you give others. Whether you're an individual contributor working on a project as a team member or even the leader of the team, there's a lot on your shoulders that you can do to start building and fostering a mentality of receiving feedback by giving it yourself. Because it's a false belief that everybody's going to provide feedback or everybody's going to understand the contributions you have. I mean, human nature dictates, and what I've seen over the years is that there's really 2 big reasons when I've talked to people about why they either didn't give feedback or felt that they weren't going to give feedback. The first one is really about this idea that particularly in big companies, there's a toxic competitiveness that happens. Well, if I give good feedback on you, well, then that's going to hamper my own ability to promote or meet my goals because I may not get positive credit back, which means I'm in a net negative of credit. Well, that's just doesn't really work that way, and it's not really true. I've seen that over and over, and I can tell you from my own experience that me giving credit out has never hurt me. As a matter of fact, it shows people that for the second reason people don't give feedback, I'm not lazy. Because you have to make space and time in order to provide this kind of credit at the end of a project in particular. I mean, you should be giving credit out throughout the project, but at the end of the project, when things all culminate, is usually a really good time to point credit out for people who deserve it. So at the end of the project, like I will book hours, and it seems like a lot of time, but if you've spent months up to a year on a project, a couple of hours to write a few key targeted mails to the right people who contributed is not that big of an ask, really. As a matter of fact, you almost have a responsibility to do it. The second tip is way more tactical, which is, okay, who do you write the emails to and what should they say? So a good rule of thumb that I followed that has always worked is you write the targeted email. I always take the broad one that I either wrote for the whole group to kind of show the overall project, or if I received one, I would piggyback on top of that and forward it with my own note. As you forward it to their manager, you copy the individual who the feedback's on and also put their leadership level on there as well. And so what you can do in that mail, though, is you want to get specific. You want to say, so-and-so really helped out on this project by negotiating this specific tough issue between these 2 teams, which led us to a great win-win outcome. Well, that's really important because not only does the individual see that you took the time to go do it, I'll tell you that my experiences, many of them will respond in turn. They'll use that as a template to say, wow, so-and-so really took time out of their day to send me some feedback. Shoot, well, they also did some great work. I'm going to recognize them for that too. So it's really important to target these emails and carve that space out in tip 1 to say, hey, I'm going to spend some time and really identify some people who really helped this project out and give them credit to their management and their management chain. And I will tell you that people who are seen as selfless that way are the ones that people will gravitate to. They'll be the ones that people want to work with because they see that not only do you care to take the time to go do it, you also aren't so worried and you're not going to be toxic about worrying is it going to hurt you as well. The bonus tip that we'll talk about is when you are crafting these mails for feedback, there's one big pitfall that I've seen, and that is merging constructive criticism as an opportunity to develop along with the credit in the same email. It almost comes across almost like a backhanded compliment, right? Wow, this person was great doing this thing, but they really pissed these people off and so we had to go fix that issue. what I would say is, of course, you want to give the individual feedback for improvement. But putting it in the same mail, I think, really diminishes the value of that credit and the win. And so, again, I'm not saying you shouldn't provide the feedback, you absolutely should. But when you put it together, it can be really difficult to craft the message to where it's not perceived as a dig as well as a credit. So hopefully that gives you some idea about what it means to start building and fostering this idea of receiving feedback and credit. The more credit you give, the more you'll receive. And from a career standpoint, the leaders, whether they're individual or managers, that are seen as selfless credit givers, they tend to do really well because they're the people that others will gravitate to work on projects together, because everybody wants to feel appreciated and wants to ensure that their credit is understood and provided to the right people. So if you become one of the fewer that will actually go out of their way to do it, it can really help you in the long run. I hope you have a great day.